A couple of days ago, I was having a conversation with a former colleague. He's working in a very large financial institution. And for the past year, he has been in charge of a new innovation project, something with technology. And he started the conversation rather abruptly, like, how do you guys do this? This is crazy. I can't take it anymore. What's happening? This is craziness. Like, there's no predictability. I cannot get any straight plan that I can show to someone else. There's no predictability. How do you get this? And talking with him and going into the details, it's nothing that you don't already see every day. He was having probably the same challenges that all of you have. Technology that changes, people coming up with new ways of doing the same things, projects that get canceled, and then they get approved again, and then the manager changes, and then so on. People that start a project, and then they find a better job inside the organization or somewhere else, and so on. And we ended up having a very long conversation, a rather interesting one. And talking to him and going through a lot of his struggles, we realized that there is this little something that he wasn't really using, and that maybe could help him. And that's what I want to talk about today. That little something is called trust. Okay, I agree with you. It's not that little. It's bigger. You recognize this for sure. And you already talked about this before, and you asked the question. How do you do innovation where normally it's not okay to fail, where it's not acceptable to make mistakes, where people need return on investment after 1 year or 2 years? How do you do that? How do you get from this chaos, from some people's perspective? We all have our CFOs and CEOs and shareholders and so on. How do you get from this chaos to predictable outcomes? How do you get to results, to new ideas actually implemented and solving real problems? A lot of times, people talk about innovation in small steps. If you look at disruptive innovation, it usually doesn't happen in small incremental steps. It happens when somebody comes in and completely changes an industry. And so it's important that we look at how can you even do this? If you have chaos, can you expect predictable results? Should you expect that? Should you expect predictable outcomes? My friend was a music fan, and we ended up making this analogy of jazz orchestra and a classical music orchestra. And what we realized is that he was expected to work in an environment which is a typical jazz environment, where you have to rely on improvisations and skills and habits of the team without a lot of predictability. But he was asked to actually first set up a 100-people classical musical orchestra and then do innovation. A classical music orchestra is very good after they have rehearsed for hundreds and thousands of times the same piece, in the same exact way, the same people. That's not how jazz works. I personally would not want to go to a concert where a classical music orchestra plays jazz. Probably you wouldn't want so. That's the way I look at this challenge of chaos to predictable outcomes. And a lot of times, technology is used to create trust where it didn't exist. A lot of companies, a lot of industries have grown and have created disruption based on that premise. Airbnb is a very good example of that. They've used social engineering, they've used design, they've used technology to create trust. Coming closer, if you look at your past few days, I'm sure you were on an airplane somewhere. Going on a flight is actually a big exercise in trust. First, we have to trust the design engineers that designed the wing, that they took into account all the possible forces and air movements to make sure that the plane stays in the air. Then we have to trust the maintenance crew that they actually check the landing gear before we take off. We have to trust the pilots and the air traffic controllers that they make sure we don't crash into another plane. I hope there's no one from Samsung here. We even have to trust all the other passengers that they don't take a Samsung Galaxy Note 7 on the plane. It's a big exercise in trust. Good technology, good design creates trust. The thing is, it goes the other way around. Without trust, I don't think you can create good, big disruptive innovation. And you all know very well, either personally or from what you've seen around you, and again, Francis' examples are exactly to this point, innovation in big companies has a lot of risks for both parties, if you want. For the employees that get involved, they either have to do it on their weekends, or if they get assigned full-time to an innovation project that probably takes 2 or 3 years, there's a big risk it will not pay off. In best case scenario, they will not get the promotion. Worst case scenario, they might lose their jobs. For the companies, the risks are financial, first of all, because they have to invest a lot of money without any guaranteed return. So there's a lot of risk. Where there's a lot of risks, trust is one way to solve that. And I want to go with you through 6 obstacles, if you want, or 6 ways in which corporate innovation is impaired, if you want, in a corporate environment. The first and the biggest one from my perspective is treating people as resources. You know this very well. I was reading an article a few days ago on innovation in a leading business journal, let's not name it. And I was really, really annoyed. Like, there's nothing that annoys me more than seeing people treat people as resources, calling them resources. How many resources do we need? How many resources can we get? How many resources can we lend to this project? Like, really? Resources? Why? Why would you do that? I understand it. Okay, if you are an airline, probably your biggest resource is your fleet of airplanes. That's your biggest asset. If you are British Airways, it's the landing slots at Heathrow, probably. If you're an energy company, it's the oil fields and the wind farms. If you're a bank, obviously, the capital that you can use. If you are Google or Facebook, it's the data that you own. That's great. Those are your biggest assets, not your people. But if you want to do innovation, no matter how big the company it is, the only asset that we have is people. Maybe sometime in the future, for sure actually, it's not maybe, we will have artificial intelligence capable of creating new industries and coming up with new products on its own. We will have that. But it's still a way off. For the moment, when you start an innovation project, the only asset that you have, asset in bracket, is people. If you treat them as resources, I don't see how you can create trust. I don't see how you can increase the trust coefficient in your project or your team or program if you treat people as resources. It just doesn't work. Second big obstacle is a big emphasis on, let's say, the typical project management constraints, budget, time, and scope, over actually thinking about people and trust. Of course, we need schedules, and of course, we need plans, and we need people to track them and to make dashboards and documentation and so on. We need that. But when you see a project manager talking only about that and not at all about the people in his team, I think that's a very good sign that the project will fail. In the work we do and what I've seen in the last years, if you look at a project, typical technology project, and if you look at it in this initial phase from 0 to 1, there are 3 big success factors, and only one of them has to do with the triple constraints or methodology or the process. That's very important. That's critical. But there are 2 others. One is skills, and the way you use them at the right moment, at the right time. And the much bigger one is, how do you make sure that people on the team work as a real team? Having a group of people in the same room or in the same conference call doesn't mean they are a team. You need to find a way to make sure that they work as a real team. A third big obstacle is about communication. Again, typical of large and small teams at the same time. It's not only in big corporations that it happens. If people don't have access to all the information they might use, to all the data, how do you expect them to take the right decisions? How do you expect them to be able to find a very good solution that helps everyone in the team? They cannot. They need to be able to communicate, and too many times the information is just not shared, either on purpose or for lack of time, for lack of incentives or whatever. It's just not shared. I've recently come across this this new platform, if you want. It's called the CRM Innovation CRM. It's from CB Insights from New York. They make, do you know them? Yeah, I love that company. And the data that they produce. The nice thing about this platform is that it creates a space for people in innovation projects, typically in big companies, to actually exchange all the relevant information or the relevant data on those projects. I think that's critical. You cannot innovate, you cannot have disruptive innovation without a lot of communication. There's a saying that stuck with me from many years ago, from one of the managers that influenced me the most, and she was always telling me, if you have a problem and you cannot solve it with communication, you cannot solve it. If you pick up the phone or go and talk to the person and you don't solve it, there's no other way to solve it. No emails, no dashboards, no PowerPoints, nothing will help you. You need to go and talk to the person or multiple people. A fourth big obstacle, and it's somehow linked to the second but slightly different. Frameworks, policies, whatever we call them. Yes, we need design thinking and we need lean startup, and every year we will have people coming up with better ways to do something. But there's a big difference between using them to improve what we already do and doing only that without looking at the team, looking at the people, looking at everyone involved. There's a very big difference. And I've seen this too many times where either the CEO or someone on the board or whatever we want to call them just comes in and says, we have to do this. If we do this, all our problems are solved. It doesn't exist. I think we all already know that. That doesn't work. What works is that you have people that can adapt, that can learn, that can take any of these new ideas and put them into practice. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. What would you prefer for your next project? Okay, we can all probably agree that the second-rate plan and the second-rate team, we don't want that. A first-rate plan and a first-rate team, pretty utopic. And to use a word that everybody in the startup world uses, it's a unicorn. But if you have to choose between a first-rate team and a second-rate plan, or a second-rate team and a first-rate plan, what do you choose? I would always go for the team. Always, no exception. Because we have to use code in the slides. I picked this one, but to paraphrase it, what I've learned over the years is that I can always predict the success of a project from day one by looking at the people in the room. Seeing who is in the room and who's taking commitment to deliver that predicts the success. I will know from day one if it will work or not. It doesn't matter what methodologies they use, doesn't matter if they all read the lean startup or not. It matters who is in the room. And I really think this is something that we forget a lot of times. And the link to that, a lot of times when we don't trust the team, if we ask ourselves that question, after 2 weeks or 5 weeks or 7 months, when things don't work out, we look for the solution in the wrong place. I'm going to change the manager, or I have this superstar employee that's going to change everything, whether he's an engineer or a designer or an anthropologist or whatever, he's going to change it. Again, it never works. Yes, you need good people. Yes, teams need leaders, not managers, but leaders. But this is not what will save them. A mediocre team will not be saved by a manager or a specialist. What the team needs is common purpose. They need to know what they're working for together, and it needs to be pretty much in the same direction. They need to have some agreed working principles. Okay, are we all transparent all the time? Or is it a top-down command and control? That's fine. Anything works as long as everybody abides to it, and we do it every day without exception. Any approach works. They need to make sure that they have complementary skills. You can have the best manager in the world. If you need a data scientist and you don't have him in the team, and you ask the developers to do the data science part, he cannot do anything. He just cannot. You need to make sure that we have the right skills in the team. And the last one, and no less dangerous from my perspective, we always talk about, and we write about it, and it's employees, it's freelancers, it's contractors, it's vendors, it's suppliers. That's great. But I really don't think that when you have a project and you need to do innovation and you have something new that you have to deliver, it matters what's written on the contract. Whether it's an employment contract, a service level agreement, or I don't know, joint venture agreement, it really doesn't matter. When people are in a call at 11 at night trying to solve some crisis, they will not think, oh, let me think. In this particular context, I'm an employee, I'm going to do this. No, here I'm a vendor, I'm going to do that. No, what matters is that they have aligned incentives. It matters that they go in the same direction, not like this. It doesn't have to be the same objective. It doesn't mean that they're all there for the money or they're all there for the press release, but you need to make sure that they're all there for some aligned objectives. And then it will work. A lot of talks on TED that you watch probably also talk about innovation. And I actually did the search a few days ago, and there are hundreds of them. Coincidentally, very few of them are about trust, only 2 or 3. Innovation and trust. But most of them are about creativity. How do we find good ideas? New technology, artificial intelligence, and so on. We need that, obviously. Without an idea, there's nothing to talk about. You can have the best team in the world. If you don't have an idea, they don't have anything to work on. But that's not enough. Yes, we're going to have to consider all the new things that probably these are already old things for most of us, but they are new for the society at large, right? We don't do technology innovation, especially technology innovation, for the sake of technology. We do it for the sake of solving real problems. Solving real problems is not enough to just have an idea, a framework, an approach, and that's it. You need to talk about execution, about grit, about determination, about people that do it. You need to talk about what you said, Francine. Thinkers and doers. If you don't have the doers, if you don't have the team to actually take it to the end, what's good? You get nothing out of it. And then you'll get shareholders, but we invested for 3 years and nothing happened. Yes, that's why. And a lot of times, and we've heard it today already, people look at startups and they try to find insights and inspiration and see what startups do that makes them successful and that helps them do disruptive innovation. I think this is completely wrong. This is not what startups are about. Startups are not about flexible hours and casual Fridays and stock options. Those are just the visible things. Startups are about trust, first and foremost. Founders need to trust themselves, first of all, that they can manage a year from now a team of 100 people when today they manage 2. And that they will negotiate a contract with Vodafone and BT a year from now, where until now the biggest contract they negotiated was the rent agreement. They have to trust themselves that they will do it. They have to trust their gut feelings because they will have an idea. They will have to run for it. It needs to be very, very focused. And there is no 100,000 euros McKinsey or Gartner report to say that they are right. By the time that report is out, the industry is already disrupted. They have to trust themselves to do that. Team members, they need to trust their leaders, their founders, that if they work hard, stay the night for 3, 4, 5, 7 years, they will get something in return at the end. They don't know whether it's money, fame, experience, learning, it doesn't matter. They will get something in return. But again, there is no contract to guarantee that. I'm sure you've seen a lot of examples where startups have done an IPO or have been sold, and the employees, even with stock option contracts, got nothing. It's easily done if you rely on contracts. Investors, they have to trust the team that they will take their money and give them back a few years from now with a multiple return. Clients, a lot of times clients pay in advance or sign contracts with startups when the technology is not proven, when the product is just a prototype, and they pay in advance. There's a lot of trust in there. So if you look at it, founders, team members, investors, clients, it's people. It's not assets, it's not resources, it's not infrastructure, it's people. People brought together by trust. And I know I'm saying the word a lot, but I want to compensate for all the TED Talks where nobody talks about it. In the end, my conversation with my former colleague ended with a little exercise that we did, and which I invite you to do also. For your next project, do this. Take a few minutes every day, every single day, to think about, let's call it the trust coefficient in your project. At the beginning, look at the whole setup. Who is involved? What objectives do they have? What is the expected timeline? What people want to get out of it? And think about, okay, does this context create trust, or is it fundamentally undermining it from day one? Like, we have a supplier, a client and a supplier that want completely different things. There's no way that they can trust each other. So think about that at the beginning. And then do this. Take a piece of paper, an A4 is enough. Put it in landscape mode. Take a pen, write the name of the project on top, and then draw a line every day. Just keep adding to the line. Start at the middle so you can go up or down. And then every day think about it. In the last 24 hours, everything that has happened in my project, increased the trust coefficient or decreased it? What can I do about it? Can I do something about it? Is it going in the right direction or is it going south? Do this for 2 minutes every day. It doesn't take more than 2 minutes. It will take a lot less at some point. You'll draw it instinctively in your head without even touching the paper. I'm sure it will be time very well spent. Thank you.